Fighting for the right to stay white, South African town holds on to racist past. Weekend Business Report starts right now. Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Keneal Gale. Thanks so much for joining us this week. Apartheid has been over for almost 3 decades, but one South African town is longing to be whites only once again. We'll have more on that in a bit, but right now, here are some of the week's top stories from the BATV News Desk. An upswing in economic risks due to rising trade tensions and debt levels has prompted the International Monetary Fund, IMF, to cut its forecast for world growth for 2018 and 2019. The IMF released its World Economic Outlook report on Tuesday. The report said global growth is projected at 3.7% for 2018. That's 0.2 percentage point below the April 2018 World Economic Outlook projection. Meanwhile, the IMF growth forecast for Latin America and the Caribbean region has also been revised downwards. Nordia Francis Williams looks at that aspect of the report.
The IMF says growth in Latin America and the Caribbean is projected to decrease from 1.3% in 2017 to 1.2% in 2018 and to rise to 2.2% in 2019. This, the multilateral says, reflects a more subdued recovery than envisaged in the April 2018 World Economic Outlook. Mexico's growth is projected to increase from 2.0% in 2017 to 2.2% in 2018 and 2.5% in 2019, supported by higher U.S. growth. The growth forecast is, however, lower than expected in the April 2018 report, reflecting the impact on investment and domestic demand of prolonged uncertainty related to trade. Brazil's economy, on the other hand, is expected to grow at 1.4% and 2.4% in 2018 and 2019, respectively, up from 1% growth in 2017, driven by a recovery of private demand as the output gap gradually closes. After growing by 2.9% in 2017, Argentina is expected to contract by 2.6% in 2018, a large downward revision relative to the April 2018 forecast, reflecting recent financial market disruptions, high real interest rates, and the faster fiscal consolidation under the Exceptional Access Standby Arrangement approved in June. The economy is expected to contract by a further 1.6% in 2019. Growth of 3.2% is expected over the medium term under the steady implementation of reforms and returning confidence. Meanwhile, Venezuela's economy continues to decline for the 5th consecutive year, following a 14% drop in 2017. Real GDP is projected to shrink by 18% in 2018 and a further 5% in 2019, driven by plummeting oil production and political and social instability. In the meantime, the IMF says the Jamaican economy is expected to grow by 1.2% in 2018 and 1.5% in 2019. Trinidad's economy is expected to recover from the recession this year, with projected growth of 1.0%. However, the forecast sees contraction in 2019 with a 0.9% growth. Robust growth is expected in the Eastern Caribbean. St. Kitts and Nevis should see growth of 2.7% in 2018 and a further uptick in 2019 with 3.5% growth. St. Lucia is predicted to grow at 3.4% in 2018 and 3.6% in 2019. Grenada's forecast is for 3.6% growth in both 2018 and 2019, while Antigua and Barbuda's 2018 growth forecast is 3.5% and 3% in 2019. Barbados, which recently signed an IMF agreement, is expected to see contraction in its economy over the next 2 years. Growth is being projected at negative 0.5% in 2018 and negative 0.1% in 2019.
In the meantime, consumer confidence is at a record high in Jamaica, while business confidence remains stable. This was reflected in the results of the third quarter survey of business and consumer confidence. Ashana Small has the details.
The latest figures show consumer confidence up from 159.1 points in the second quarter to 172.6 points for the third quarter. This is the highest it's been in the survey's history. Managing Director of Market Research Services Limited, Don Anderson, says this increase in consumer confidence is because consumers had a positive outlook for current and future job prospects. This figure moved from 37% in the second quarter to 41% this quarter.
Consumers point to what they believe will be more jobs. They see the construction sector, they hear talk about the BPO sector, and they believe that coming out of those two, they will in fact be able to get a job sometime.
But even though the job expectations for consumers had increased, Mr. Anderson points out that the number of people who believe they'll get a job is still less than those who think they won't get a job.
I mean, as we made the point, we're moving from 20% and 25%. When you get up to 41%, that's a huge jump. But you have to remember the flip side of that 59% don't believe that jobs are going to become plentiful.
And unlike the previous quarter, Mr. Anderson says consumers now believe they'll benefit from the growth in the economy.
The current data suggests that consumers are now believing that it will happen. And that's a major change between the second quarter of 2018 and the current quarter. And they're seeing it because of the construction sector and family members getting a job. And you know, they think kind of in front of their faces. So they see their family members or friends they know get a job which can last for 4 months. That makes a big difference for them. And they're now beginning to feel that it will trickle down to them somewhere along the line.
Meanwhile, the Business Confidence Index remains the same as the previous quarter, at approximately 140 points. The majority of businesses surveyed believe the time is right for expansion.
Businesses are bullish about investment. They are very bullish about investment. They have been for the last 10 quarters. Despite that, they have a very cautious view about where the economy is going. But they're very bullish about investment, expect their profitability to be consistent, but at the same time are very cautious about going forward.
And the survey also showed that businesses are more concerned about the instability of the Jamaican dollar than they are about crime. Here's more.
For the first time this quarter, the devaluation of the Jamaican dollar has surpassed crime as a major deterrent to investment. But Don Anderson, Managing Director of Market Research Services Limited, which conducted the survey, said the government should not let this information lead to complacency with crime fighting.
They would be ill-advised if they then assume that the crime factor is not a big factor. Because the data does clearly indicate, and I want to make the point very clearly indicate, that crime is still a big deterrent. It is just that the devaluation of the dollar, how people see this particular point. But both of them are big elements in the destabilization and process of investment. It's a very critical factor.
However, President of the Jamaica Chamber of Commerce, Larry Watson, argued that the dollar's devaluation showed up in the survey as a major concern to businesses because of the time the survey was conducted.
In July, it ended the month at 130.16. Now remember, the survey started July 6th to September 25th, and at the end of August, the rate was 135.48. And within that time, on July 12th, it was 137, and August 15th, it was 137.20.
He commended the measures taken by the Bank of Jamaica and the Ministry of Finance since.
The dollar moved too quickly to keep them comfortable, and that shattered the confidence because the objective of having people, trying to get people to save in Jamaican dollars and not US had moved. So I think that then at that particular time when Don was doing the survey, shattered the business confidence, not shattered, it disrupted or moved the focus of the business confidence to the exchange rate. However, I think as you see, the Bank of Jamaica, the Ministry of Finance has been very vocal, in how they are managing it.
Moving on now, some 27 years after the abolition of apartheid, there are still communities of white South Africans who refuse to mix with their black fellow citizens. It's the case in the town of Orania, where the only language spoken is Afrikaans, the tongue of the first Dutch settlers. Here's a special report from France 24 English.
An air of nostalgia looms over this small town of central South Africa. Here, most residents are Christian and everyone speaks Afrikaans. Today, 1,500 people live in this Afrikaner-only town. It even has its own currency. and its own flag. Founded after the collapse of apartheid 27 years ago, figureheads of the racist regime are part of Oranye's scenery.
Oranje, Afrikaner settlement where we can create our own future, be self-sufficient. And now in the New South Africa, we have a black majority that's also not always very kind to the Afrikaners especially. So the idea was to have a place where we stay out of this.
An enclave for Afrikaners, the descendants of Dutch settlers. Farmer Anton Enslin moved to Oranje 5 years ago and says he was evicted from his previous home. When his land was claimed by black South Africans, he accepted compensation from the government.
As soon as the land claim was published, the intimidation started. My father gave me the advice and said, Anton, let us sell the farm because we have to let go some of the land. We can't keep the whole South Africa for us. But now, all of us here is feeling safe. We are happy.
Anton might be happy, but he isn't reassured. He's concerned that he could be evicted again. The government plans to accelerate redistribution of land to black South Africans by expropriating white farmers. This time, there will be no compensation. Oranje's residents are fearful their heritage could slowly disappear.
Je moet mij nou 'n bietjie wys wat jy besig is om te doen en sê as ek jou kan help met iets, wys my watter.
In this school, the students have two different syllabuses, the state's official program and Oranje's version.
It is geography and history in one book from the viewpoint of the new regime, which is also subjective. This is more from our viewpoint, so they can compare the two and they can make their own opinion.
The town's syllabus makes no mention of Nelson Mandela, who they say isn't part of their history, a stronghold for Afrikaner culture. A group of workers who stopped by at this supermarket saw the town for the first time.
I think it's not a problem they are living alone, but we also feel like we have to live with them because we are all human beings.
No, it's actually sad for me to see a place like this. It's very small and live alone.
So is this the refuge for nostalgics of apartheid or the reflection of an unease among certain Afrikaners today? This couple is considering moving here and the town is providing them with a house for a week before they take a final decision.
Dis al 28 jaar wat ek daar gebly het. Maar dinge raak maar net moeiliker vir ons in die sin van om werk te kry en
The local council has offered to assist Leonardo with setting up his electrical company. He says that the laws aiming to increase black employment have turned against white South Africans.
Where I'm staying, it's, to get work is so hard. And I think it's mainly because of my skin color.
It's getting worse and worse. I mean, like 15 years back, I went to the shop, I walked, I did what I want. Now I don't go alone anymore.
Last year, there were 57 murders in South Africa every day, a number that has been on the rise for the past 6 years. And meanwhile, Oranje's population grew by 10%.
Company news comes up next, then later, Port's future precariously perched on a Brexit deal. The details in the final segment of the show, so stay with us. Welcome back to Weekend Business Report. Here's this week's company news.
On-time taxi passengers will now be able to pay their fares using NCB's mobile money solution, Quisk. NCB says the move is timely as both companies seek to increase the safety of passengers by allowing them to go cashless to pay fares. On-time passengers will be able to pay drivers using their cell phones with a text message notification being sent to the driver's phone when the transaction is complete. Mayberry Jamaican Equities reached a milestone with comprehensive income surpassing the $6 billion mark at the end of the 9 months ending September. This comes just months after listing on the Jamaica Stock Exchange. Mayberry Jamaican Equities says they're grateful for the support during the IPO and are looking looking forward to further success and positive results. Shareholders at the St. Lucia-based company Sterling Investments Limited voted in favor of a 5-to-1 stock split in its extraordinary general meeting on Monday. Sterling Investments chairman Derek Jones says the split will make it easier for investors to buy and share stocks in the company. The shareholders also approved an increase in the company's authorized share capital. This was increased from a little over $1.8 billion to $2 billion and 10,000 preference shares each valued at $10,000.
Let's now take a look at the closing numbers from the major stock markets around the world. When we come back, more of the week's top stories from the BATV News Desk. So stay with us. Welcome back to Weekend Business Report. Before year end, the new concessionaires of the Norman Manley International Airport, NMIA, will begin operations. The government and the Mexican-based company signed the concession agreement on Wednesday. Javon Keys was there.
Full throttle has been engaged and preparations for takeoff have begun with the public-private partnership between the Norman Manley International Airport through the Airports Authority of Jamaica and Grupo Aeroportuario del Pacifico, the Mexican-based airport operating company. They have signed a concession agreement which will see them operating the Norman Manley International Airport for the next 25 years. After a lengthy divestment process spanning years and different administrations, the Norman Manley International Airport is officially off the government's hands. Grupo Aeroportuario del Pacifico, GAP, was announced as the preferred bidder on September 11, and the contract to seal the deal signed Wednesday morning. After the deal was sealed, Minister of Transport and Works Robert Montague said the government was pleased with the agreement, especially as the deal is in keeping with the administration's growth strategy.
The selection of GAP as the preferred bidder for Norman Manley's concession marks a significant step towards Jamaica scoring another successful PPP. This too comes on the heels of the completion of the Kingston Container Terminal and the North-South Highway. The Norman Manley PPP affirms the government's commitment to facilitating private sector investment to develop world-class infrastructure, which is a critical element of the government's economic growth strategy.
Minister Montague pointed out that through the agreement, the government will receive a percentage of the revenues earned. The deal also sees the airport's new operators being mandated to execute some improvement works to include runway expansion. The upgrades are expected to cost some $110 million.
The Cannabis Licensing Authority, CLA, is considering waiving licensing fees for small farmers. Here's more.
Entering the legal ganja industry is very expensive. The licenses alone will cost you up to $10,000 depending on the category. Growers' licenses cost up to $3,000 an acre. It's caused small farmers to complain that they're being left out of the lucrative industry. But Ms. Henry says the CLA will consider waiving the license fees on a case-by-case basis.
There are also provisions in the current law where waivers of license fee or deferment of the payment of fee may be applied on a case-by-case basis for applicants who need it most.
As Jamaica moves to regulate the industry, concerns have been raised that only the big players in the field will benefit. But Henry says her agency has plans for small farmers too.
The matter of the inclusion of small traditional farmers in the medicinal industry has not escaped the government. As we speak, plans and programs are being put in place to address same. These plans will impact the economy, the local communities, as well as the way of life of the people within those local communities.
The CLA grants licenses to individuals over 18 who wish to plant, distribute, manufacture, or export ganja. Ms. Henry says since its inception in 2016, they've received over 500 applications. 400 of those applications are now being processed.
They're calling themselves the MIT of the region. Caribbean Maritime University, CMU, has opened its FestoFact Center to provide basic to advanced level training for students as well as professionals in industrial automation and mechatronics within the region. BATV's Jamila Maitland visited the brand new billion-dollar facility and now reports.
Innovations, technological advancements, and the practical skill sets all happening at the Caribbean Maritime University. The institution recently opened its FESTO-authorized and certified training center for industrial automation and mechatronics only 2 weeks ago, to the tune of $1.4 billion, the only in the Caribbean and Latin America. The center, funded by German multinational industrial and automation company Festo, provides training in pneumatics, pressurized air, hydraulics to be used in mechanics, agri-foods normally used in the food and beverages industry, and the newest trend in automation, Industry 4.0. Renee Flores is executive director of the FestoFact Center.
We have the top of the equipment to provide industrial training. Nobody in the Caribbean, nobody in Central America has this equipment. The important thing is that we can receive at the same time more than 60 persons to provide training in different kind of technologies. And it is important to mention that we have Industry 4.0 equipment here. That means we are the benchmark in industrial automation at the moment and for a while.
The executive director, who gave us a tour of the facility, says they've already trained Pepsi-Cola Jamaica before the center was officially opened. He told us that several other businesses have indicated their interest.
A person from maintenance departments, production departments, from Pepsi-Cola Jamaica, for example. We will start to provide training to Hard Trust, to some instructors of Hard Trust. We are talking with some ports in the Caribbean. They are interested to send their workers to receive training about hydraulics and pneumatics mostly. And of course, we are providing training to students of CMU.
Meanwhile, Vice President of Technology and Innovations at the CMU, Professor Noel Brown, says they're changing the perception of the university from one focused mainly on maritime and logistics to a major center for technology and innovations. The first batch of FestoFact students started in September.
When we come back, ports post-Brexit future. More WBR after this break. Welcome back to Weekend Business Report. Concerns are growing in Portugal about a possible Brexit fallout. Wine growers in the country are worried that sales of port could be hit by the UK leaving the European Union.
In the Douro Valley in Portugal, winemaking has been a way of life for centuries. The rocky soil and extreme variations in temperature mean that grapes grown here are very sweet, perfect for making port.
Port is good because it's from here, from this region. This is a unique region. The people are very important, the climate, the soil.
The EU's geographical indicator laws help to protect these winemakers' livelihood, meaning only fortified wine that's produced here can be called port. This prevents the market from flooding with industrial-scale, low-cost knockoffs.
If it wasn't for wine, there would be a crisis, both for our employers and for us. Without wine, the Douro region would be on its knees. Wine is our wealth.
Britain is Portugal's second largest market for port, worth around 50 million euros in trade a year. Its popularity dates back to the 17th century, when conflict with France meant French wine was off limits for English drinkers. But Brexit could change that. The UK hasn't yet confirmed if it will abide by the geographical indicator rules after it exits the bloc. Experts say it's unlikely the EU would agree to a deal that didn't include the measure.
I don't think the Europeans will accept, the EU will accept a Brexit deal which does not protect feta cheese, Parmesan cheese or champagne wine. Also because the entire final Brexit deal will need to be ratified by national parliaments.
The policy has been a flashpoint before. The US says the measures amount to trade barriers. For now, it's another bargaining chip on the table as the UK and the EU finalise their divorce agreement.
And that's our show for this week. On behalf of the entire Weekend Business Report team, I'm Keneal. See you next time.